Fallout used to feel like a warning, like a dark note for humanity's future thanks to its own violent nature. But now it feels more like a playground. They say that war never changes. But somewhere along the way, the vision did. Right off the bat, I just want to say that I do not think that Bethesda games suck. In fact, at some point, I would say that Bethesda saved Fallout from falling into the abyss. But you know the saying, either you die a hero or you live long enough to become the villain. And Bethesda, they've been the villain for a while now. Fallout has a long history of being one of the best computer RPGs ever made. But as many of you know, this game was not started by Bethesda. This game was started by the now closed studio Black Isle, also known as Interplay. The game they created was truly the definition of an open world game. As soon as you left the starting area, you could explore the wasteland, help or conquer anyone you saw, or you can just rush the main story and finish the game in under 30 minutes. No joke. That is the level of freedom Black Isle gave us. The world was your oyster, whatever that means. But if the original Fallout was so great, why did it fail to keep itself afloat? How and why did Bethesda chime in to quite literally save the franchise? And if they saved the franchise, how can I say that Bethesda never really understood Fallout? Well, the thing is that Bethesda kept the theme, but lost the aesthetic. They kept the idea, but misunderstood the philosophy, the moral ambiguity, the dark satire, and the real consequences to your actions. Fallout right now is more popular than ever, with sales and playtime going through the roof, and that's mostly due to the series. But when all of that is said and done, and we can take off these rose-colored glasses, can we really say that Bethesda didn't fail to understand Fallout? The year is 1994, and a small group of devs are starting to develop the start of a game. After some discussion, the theme settled for post-apocalyptic, using inspirations from a lot of places. Stuff like Mad Max, A Bug in Its Dog, Forbidden Planets, The City of Lost Children, and even Flash Gordon for the jumpsuits. But it's thanks to one of the lead artists, Leonard Boyarsky, that the theme of the 1950s was thrown into the mix, finally giving us the looks of what would become the first Fallout game. The key thing is that the 1950s and Cold Deco themes were used sparingly. This game was meant to look like the future as the people from the 1950s imagined it, and then nuked the hell out of it. Bethesda just took the apocalypse and made it 1950s flavor. If you look at the weapons from Fallout 1 and 2, you can see that most of them are based on stuff like Mad Max, and some of them even look realistic, like actual weapons. And yes, obviously you still have your sci-fi exaggeration guns like the lasers on alien stuff, but those were the exception, not the rule, because the theme was used sparingly. Now, we both know that looks aren't everything, you need the sauce, so a healthy dose of dark humor was thrown into the mix. If you've played the OG Fallout games, you know that they have a really well-crafted balance of harsh environment, threatening enemies, and dark humor. Couple that with endless movie quotes and Easter eggs, mix it up, and you can have a really weird but fantastic drink. Also, the games overall portrayed a really harsh and gray morality. No one was really the good or the bad guy here. This was to counterpoint the popular games of that era where you were the holy hero sent to save the world and fight demons or something. In Fallout, you had reputations, you had factions, you had enemies, and you had allies. You had the freedom to choose who you were in the middle of this wasteland. Another aspect that I want to talk about this game is the ambient music. Because again, if you've played the OG Fallout games, you know that the ambient music on that game is exactly that, ambient. And it reminded you of that desolated, barren world you're living in right now. There was no 1950s radio with upbeat country music that made everything feel like a music montage. Some on top of that, the visceral death animations for anyone unlucky enough to be on the receiving end of your pistol, and you can start to see the differences between Black Isle and Bethesda. So what happened? To keep this video short, let's just say that between engine changes and staff changes for the developers, coupled with a change on the market, leaving the CRPG niche completely outdated, and 2 Fallout games that the fans prefer to act like they don't even exist, Black Isle was in some rough times, and they really needed a scapegoat. And that scapegoat was...
Who's laughing now? Yes, I was in the chess club.
It had been years since anything had been done with the Fallout IP. It was just there, sitting on the counter collecting dust, until a certain company called Bethesda contacted Black Isle and made them an offer for an opportunity to make 3 games on the Fallout world. This was an easy way for both studios to make some money, but after a lot of legal conflicts, in 2006, Black Isle sold the full rights of Fallout to Bethesda. You can see that this entry took a special interest on faithfully recreating what made the Fallout look work. The guns still look realistic to a certain point. The Pip-Boy is back, even though yeah, they changed it from pocket carry to wrist carry, but honestly I think this look is way more iconic, and I think that is a fantastic innovation to the look of Fallout. That said, the green main theme was maintained, and even the power armor looks like the original game. Just like I mentioned before, the looks are not everything. The feel is also important, and the feel of Fallout 3 was definitely a different story. Since Bethesda is known for their incredible RPGs and only using their iconic engine, Fallout 3 ended up feeling, and I quote here, like Oblivion with guns. Since they ended up sharing the same engine, Fallout 3 had a lot of the same features as Oblivion, and even worse so, all of its glitches. Also, the gunplay, the way that guns feel when you play with them, was not really there at all. There was no feedback when you hit your shots, and a lot of the shots that you should have hit were missing, even when you were using ADS. Perks were now granted every single level instead of every 3 levels, something that sooner rather than later would make you a literal god of the wasteland. This would also steer away from the original game design that made each perk choice important and impactful. The soundtrack was also completely different this time. Even though both studios presented their games with a catchy 1950s song, that's where it ended with the original games. The music for the new games feels more like the GTA radio, with catchy tunes and upbeat songs that make the world feel more like a playground instead of a wasteland. Besides that, Bethesda changed the narrative to more linear stories and missions that weave between each other and always push you on towards your next objective. This also brought a stricter narrative with force designs that was a harsh contrast to the open world philosophy of the old games, where every quest had multiple ways of being solved. Also, since this game was full 3D and meant for the largest audience possible, there was a lot of hand-holding the player. The combat was also less harsh, being real-time instead of turn-based. The map also now has quest markers instead of letting us figure out the next step or explore the world to find out where to go. And the gray morality of the series was turned into binary good or evil. But all is not bad. The architecture of the game was also faithfully recreated. You can even see some hints of the Code Deco style in the tall buildings with the harsh statues carved into them. Also, with the vaults, they stick to concrete colors and tight corridors. The vault suits were also modified to look more baggy and worn out, to make it seem like they were being passed on generation by generation. Again, a change that I feel makes a lot of sense. Some monsters and armors were redesigned but kept the original theme, and the ghouls, even though they look significantly less horrifying than the original games, they still look pretty horrifying with their missing nose or the flaking skin that shows actual muscles and vein underneath, and even with their wide lost eyes, they look really horrifying, even if redesigned. And all of this can be attributed to one of the most important, if not the only, concept artist of Fallout 3, Adam Adamowicz. It is by his hand that Fallout 3 looks incredibly unique and like an actual Fallout game. I mean, just look at the concept art. The use of gold, metal colors, and a grounded art style really makes this look dark and gritty, like it's supposed to be. Overall, I would say that Fallout 3 made a fantastic job at not only recreating but innovating on the style of Fallout, even if it was at the cost of some hand-holding. It did save the franchise from the abyss after all, and made the series more popular than ever before. But, and this is a really big but, Black Isle was not done with their IP just yet, and they wanted to show the world what a Fallout of full 3D could really accomplish. A lot of the developers from Black Isle Studios switched boats when the company was going under, and they created their own studios called Obsidian Entertainment. Sounds familiar? So, in a way, Obsidian Entertainment are the original creator of the Fallout franchise. So, it's no surprise that to a lot of fans from the original games, this new game feels like a throwback to the old game philosophy and design. The question is, why do new fans that only started playing Fallout after Fallout 3 still say that Fallout New Vegas is the best experience there is for Fallout? Just like in the old days, New Vegas tackles a lot of dark themes, this time being gambling and casino. This game used a lot of characters and world building from the Van Buren project. This is what it was supposed to be Fallout 3 before Black Isle disbanded. In fact, the game director for Fallout 2, Chris Avellone, and fellow veteran Josh Sawyer wanted to bring back to life the Fallout 3 of their dreams. So with that in mind, they made Fallout New Vegas way more innovative and riskier than Fallout 3. The first difference that you can see is that the story is much less overbearing. It's a lot less about saving the world and you being the chosen one, and it's more about you being one more character in this wasteland of a world. New Vegas also introduces again a really much more open world, as well as the return of tagged skills. They also removed the karma system and integrated a new reputation system for each of the factions, giving more weight to your actions throughout the game, and again blurring the moral compass to make it gray again, getting rid of the simple and binary good or evil. The main story also presented a lot of freedom to the player, giving them plenty of options to choose on how to progress the game. The ending changing dramatically depending on who you decide to support, that being Mr. Howe, the Legion, the NCR, or yourself, which I know is yes man, but it's technically yourself, okay? And if you ask me, the best addition that New Vegas integrated to the Wasteland is the hardcore mode, a mode where now sleep, hunger, and thirst are things that you have to actually manage and take care of. They are threats to your well-being. On top of that, the caps and bullets have weight, and the healing items don't heal you instantly, they heal over time. Radiation, by the way, is now scary as f***, and the worst or best part of this is permanent companion death. Talk about a lone wolf build, am I right? Honestly, I can't play New Vegas in regular mode anymore. It has to be hardcore whenever I play New Vegas. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that this game is perfect. It has its plenty of glitches and annoying stuff. But I do cut them some slack because this game was made in 18 months, people! In just 18 months, they were able to deliver a true marriage of the Fallout 2 ideology and the Fallout 3 formula. I'm telling you, the only reason Obsidian Studios, or any studio for that matter, hasn't gotten another chance to make a Fallout game is because the one time that Bethesda lended its toys, they got completely upstaged. No wonder they won't do it again. They're jealous as fuck. Fallout 4 innovates really well on a lot of stuff. The problem? They innovate on a lot of stuff that doesn't really matter. Firstly, they try to make a decisive family rescuing story about finding your lost son on the wasteland. but you see your son for like 5 minutes? I have no interest on who this guy is nor where he went to, but this is the emotional hook for the whole campaign. Then they decided to add base building and tinkering and modding, which I agree is a lot of fun. Some would say the most and only fun you can have on this game. But again, why are we innovating on base building and creating a future for the wasteland when I'm trying to find my son? What comes first, Bethesda? Saving the wasteland or saving my son? Tell me! The gunplay, by the way, is better than ever, and I do applaud the betterment of combat outside of that. But the gunplay is still ass compared to the gunplay of other games that we have at that time. The character progression was dumbed down even more so than Skyrim, which again, literal god by level 30. The stories were incredibly linear, the freedom was gone, the RPG elements have been worse than ever before. It's like they were creating an FPS with some RPG elements instead of the other way around. Gone were the days of dark, gritty and gloomy color palettes and harsh environments. Now it's time to see those colorful 1950 retro-futuristic cars and those skyscrapers, the house made of metal, and even lawn furniture that somehow survived 2 centuries of the elements that are still on perfect condition to be used. The guns are now more fantastical than ever, with little to no guns being based on actual guns from the time period. The ghouls have lost everything that made them scary. They pretty much just look like Deadpool now, but with no nose. And why are we seeing the same exact things 4 games into the series? I understand that Fallout 1 and 2 were both set in California, so I can understand why we see pretty much the same stuff. But how in the hell are we seeing all the other way across the country the same red scorpions, the same deathclaws, the same super mutants, and the same brotherhood of steel? Is this all that there is to the wasteland? Is every corner of America rid with scorpions, deathclaws, mutants, and fanatics? Why not take the chance on every state to present new mutated fauna or new factions? And I understand that there is a need to keep familiarity in a game, to keep players returning, but come on, zero innovation? We see the same 4 things on Fallout 76, and I refuse to talk about Fallout 76. But what about, why, it's cool now? Well, you're late, buddy. You're 8 years late. I'm not about to forgive one of the worst launches in video game history and pretty much corporate theft just because a game that was released half-baked now has updates and finally feels like a full game. No. Fallout 76 sucks, and it's a prime example of the gritty new model for AAA games, but we will talk about that on a later video. Bethesda used to be the new kid on the block. They used to be a hungry studio with something to prove, but now, with a solid place on the market and with no competition, they have become stubborn and lazy. They used to make the best RPGs out there with Morrowind, Oblivion, and I would dare say Skyrim, which was a life-defining game for me. But now all they make is jokes, out of themselves mostly. They grew compliant and prideful, doubling down on what used to work and refusing to adapt to the new market, making heartless husks of games with the IPs that we used to love. What made Fallout timeless was not the nukes or the bolts or the power armor. Yes, those were amazing, but what made it timeless was the belief that choices matter, even when the world was broken. It used to ask you who you were when no one was there to judge you. Now it's mostly about 1950s cosplay. Somewhere along the way, the wasteland got safer, smoother, and more accessible, and in doing so, Fallout lost the very thing that made it dangerous. Because Fallout wasn't about saving the world, it was about living with the consequences. And when you remove that, you don't just simplify the game, you erase its soul.